am Matt Wilhelmi, and I'm the owner of Strategic Voyages Business Consultants. I'm also the author of Taboo Business Questions, What's Haunting Every Entrepreneur's Growth. And today I'm joined by Raquel Castillo. She is a fractional integrator for companies running on EOS, building systems, processes, and people. And Raquel, thank you so much for joining me. This is our second episode, and so we're working through this case study. I'd love to give a quick recap, and then we can jump right into some cautionary tales. You know, you being a EOS platform user now for multiple years, being a full-time integrator in a manufacturing company, your success is pretty amazing. You actually helped a company go from 6 employees, and within 18 months, they grew to 30 employees in that manufacturing world. And so not only that, you've got an MBA from Texas A&M, which I'm sure they don't just hand out to anybody looking to get an MBA. So I feel lucky to be talking to you. Thank you so much for your time. Again, to recap where we're at, we were talking about this Texas-based software development company. And I was brought in as a fractional CFO type who does, makes like pitch decks and things like that, which I do, and help them, try to create this pitch deck to raise some private equity. And what I found from working with them for a while was that they were having some issues in their leadership team. And you and I broke that down in our last episode. You wanted to know, who's kind of the integrator? Is there some accountability going on there? One of the leadership team members just all of a sudden decided, was super disengaged. And I think from your experience, you've probably seen this happen once or twice. Their scorecard numbers are not going well. They're trending in the wrong direction. They've even missed a few L10 meetings. And you asked what seat they sit in. Well, they're in the sales seat, and that is not a seat that you can afford to slack for too long. And so, Raquel, with that big introduction, I'm just curious, what is going to happen to a company that doesn't try and fix this problem? I'm sure you've seen it in your experience. What are the options? And then what have you seen?
Yeah, I've seen 2 things happen. Either 1, you hold on to the person, or 2, you let go of the person. In my mind, those are the 2 options. Now, there's a ton of other options there, or you can either demote them also. If they're not a right fit, maybe you wanted to demote them. So those are 3 kind of options. And the first one is if you keep someone too long and they're not being accountable to what you've asked them to do, sometimes that can create, a ripple effect of people not being accountable to what they're supposed to do. So scorecards getting missed. Hopefully they're having meetings within their department. So then the question I have is the department getting their to-dos done? Are they having meetings? With this specific company, how many direct reports did the salesperson have?
In this particular company, they had 4 direct reports. They're all full-time salespeople.
Yeah. So that would lead me to the question is, how is the sales reps doing? And going in and saying, are they actually being held accountable? And holding on to them too long can kind of affect the culture as a whole. And you're allowing one person to kind of slip on the accountability when the other people are holding up their bargain, and so that can create just chaos in the culture. And I've seen it happen where, we've held on to, maybe a leadership member who was there for too long, and then it just became a little bit of the disengagement caused everyone to disengage. Everyone's asking questions, and then all of a sudden, nobody wants to answer questions. Everyone's tiptoeing around what's going on with this particular person. And that's not a way that you want to be as a leadership team, is tiptoe around anyone. And so really, like we talked about previously, having the one-on-one conversation, asking them the why, and then really getting into, okay, can this person sit in this seat? Are they able to do what we need them to do? And whether that means to let them go or keep them. And so sometimes I've seen where on the opposite end, people let go of, maybe their top salesperson and they're consistent for a period of time. And then all of a sudden for a period, they're not holding their ends, they're not doing scorecards, they're missing L10s. But maybe they just need some coaching. So, okay, hey, just a reminder, if you've been doing it 2 or 3 years running on EOS, like you said, this company was doing, I'm pretty sure there's some kind of burnout going on also, not with just in EOS, but there may be some burnout too. So burnout is a big part of, hey, what's going on? Get a pulse check. In the EOS world, we like there's something called the clarity break. Are you familiar with that, Matt?
You're about to teach me something. I've never heard of it.
Yeah. So the clarity break is a time where you allow your direct reports, your leadership team, to kind of take a day and they're basically working on the business, not in the business. And so for me, what that kind of looked like was, hey, my direct reports leadership team, go out 2 hours you spend working on the business, take a piece of paper with you and nothing else, not your computer, not your phone, turn off technology. And then the other 2 hours, do half a day or a full day. The other 2 hours, you're doing something for yourself. And so a lot of times that will help prevent burnout, is doing a clarity break monthly, is what I like to have teams do. And that kind of helps them from, okay, getting engaged again, resetting. But yeah, 2 or 3 years, doing the same routine, sometimes you can see people just disengage, and you really have to find out what's going on there.
Yeah, I think with with these different cautionary tales that you mentioned, there's definitely a number of different ways to solve the problem, which we'll get into in our next episode. But thinking about these cautionary tales, it's really interesting, because if you are going to hold on to this employee too long, or just kind of like not address the issue, man, I would bet like just the energy in the room is going to start to stink a little bit. It's like nobody else wants to come to the meeting anymore because we all know Jim's not going to do his numbers. And, it just gets frustrating. You're like, well, why am I working my butt off if he's not doing his part? I'm pushing the cart up by myself now. I need him to help me push the cart up the hill. So you get some resentment, in the leadership team. And I would imagine that over time, that resentment would get to the point that people, they start to bicker about things. They maybe aren't as positive as they used to be. Things aren't as creative, and it gives a bad vibe to the whole thing. Have you seen somebody go through the process like this and actually just think that traction is the problem, and then they jump off of doing traction altogether? Is that an idea that people have had, that maybe that's the solution? And what happens there?
Yeah. I have seen where leadership teams were rolling out traction, and then someone on the leadership team says, I think this is BS. Like, why are we even doing this? And just throw their hands up. And that's honestly why I love EOS, is because it shows you're the true person, right? So I like to believe that you're one person. So you're not somebody at work and you're not somebody at home, you're one person. And what traction does is, if a company has core values and say that person isn't abiding by them, or, becomes lazy, I'm pretty sure no one's core values are laziness. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but that may be somebody's. But I'm pretty sure it doesn't align with their core values at some point. And so if they're on the leadership level, everyone should be held to those core values that the company has. And if somebody falls off or just says, hey, this isn't for me, traction isn't for me, more likely than not, the system will push that person out. Or that person will say, hey, this is not for me, I'm going to go on. And we gladly say, we celebrate you, we understand this is what we're doing here. And so a lot of times they'll choose to leave. If a lot of people aren't comfortable with accountability. They're not comfortable with having hard conversations. That doesn't come naturally to me. I mean, conflict, I used to want to run from conflict until I realized, oh, there's healthy conflict. And actually it brings people together. I feel more connected with you after we have conflict. And so conflict's needed in order for teams to actually, be empathetic and grow with one another.
I totally agree. And in that same line of thinking, Raquel, I would guess, and again, I'm going to ask you if you've seen this happen, if somebody is let go maybe too quickly, that could also damage the culture in the leadership team, because all of a sudden you're looking around like, he just got let go with no notice, or we didn't even give him a performance improvement plan, or, I hope they don't figure out, what, like, I could be next. And it creates this awkward, very walking around on eggshells kind of environment. And that's not going to be healthy for the leadership team either. Have you seen that happen where, it gets so toxic because of quick firings and quick trigger fingers?
Yes. As I mentioned, we were in a startup, and one of the first seats that I made sure to fill, and for a while I was actually sitting in it, was HR. I am an advocate for HR department, no matter the size of the company. And a big part of that is policies and procedures around, okay, what is our coaching process? What is our firing process? Because a lot of times you don't see performance, and then you're just like, okay, done with you. That's it. And is that really giving yourself and the other person a chance? No, it's not. And so that's another reason why I'm not a big fan of yearly evaluations. I think they're trash, if I'm honest. Like it's just meeting with someone once a year and not talking about how the rest of the other days went in the year makes no sense to me. And so
I just want to interrupt you for a second, Raquel, because that sounds like a pretty stern opinion. And while I agree, I also disagree, because I think you do need to have an annual review, but I think that it shouldn't be the only review. You should probably have some quarterly conversations. I think they're called in the traction world, and probably even more frequent than that. Getting to know the person, having a little bit of a relationship, having boundaries, but you can't be running around with a huge task list all day and not know the people that are doing the work. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah, a great point. They're helpful. Annual reviews are helpful, but they shouldn't be the only thing done. And a lot of times in companies, when I go in, I'll ask them, hey, what does your review system look like? And they'll say, oh, well, we meet with people once a year. And I'm like, okay. So yeah, quarterly, monthly, weekly, there is a cadence. Yeah. There's so many cadences you can have to know your people and make sure that you know that what they need and how you can help them. So yeah, firing too fast sometimes can breed fear into the rest of your team, your leadership team, of, okay, they just went, none of us had any idea. We never even brought this on the issues board as a team. So are we actually transparent? We say that we're a transparent culture, and we have EOS and we're having honest conversations, but that wasn't brought as an issue. So then it brings fear as to, yes, am I next? What's going on here? And we don't want that. We don't want to bring, now, if there was something that was unjust, or there was a legal something that, hey, no question about it, I understand that. But 9 times out of 10, there is a way to coach someone, or, make sure that you have processes and systems in place where you're not just firing someone because, they didn't come to a meeting.
Yeah, that's great insight, because there is a delicate balance that I think needs to be thought through, and you don't want to be too quick and you don't want to be too lazy. So thank you so much for some of those cautionary tales. Just to give a quick recap, we're wrapping up our second episode, and we're going to jump into some solutions here in a second. I've got some good ones I wrote down. I'm going to be interested to hear what you've got to say as well, Raquel. But just to make sure that we're on the same page, when we're thinking about these cautionary tales, there are definitely benefits and cautions to acting in either way, letting that person go too quickly, maybe hanging on to them for too long. It seems like there's, some very narrow paths to walk down towards the solution, because if you kind of go off the roads or off the rails, either way, it's going to be a disaster for that leadership team. So thank you again for your time. I'm really looking forward to our next episode, where we get to talk about some solutions for this Texas-based software development company. Again, they've been on the EOS platform for a few years. Somebody on the leadership team just suddenly, their performance really dropped off. They were missing meetings. They weren't updating their scorecard, and they weren't completing their weekly to-dos. So kind of the triple disaster, for somebody on the leadership team. So looking forward to discussing solutions on our next episode. Thanks.